The content you're about to hear may be graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh, how I wonder what it's like to relax. See the sky down under. Hope my plans collapse. Oh, how I'm under the surface of my tears, falling down asunder the meaning of my years.
This is True Crime XS.
Do you follow like strange cases between like corrections officers and inmates? Like when you hear about like someone, I'm trying to think of the name of those two people. I know we followed one because there was like the escape that happened, and it was like the lieutenant that had like she had decided she wanted to have a relationship with the inmate, and they were going to
that happened in Alabama. Yeah,
right.
I can't remember her name either, but yeah, it was bad news.
I get fascinated from time to time when I hear about something really crazy happening. And I don't know if you remember way back a long time ago in Baltimore, I want to say there were like, it's either going to be 4 or 5 corrections officer who got impregnated by the same guy. Do you remember that case?
Maybe.
I remember, like, I can picture it. Oh, I found it pretty quickly. Okay. This is a CBS News article from April 2013, just by staff. It says 4 female prison guards impregnated by same inmate. Baltimore, Maryland. 4 female prison guards in Baltimore fell pregnant to the same inmate, according to authorities who have busted a major smuggling gang inside the jail system. 2 of the women tattooed the inmate's name on their bodies, and he showered 3 of them with expensive gifts, including cars and jewelry. I hear that. Like, I think when people hear cars and jewelry, they think like a Rolls Royce and like some expensive Hope diamond style necklace, and all I can picture is like a 2003 Dodge Caravan and like some basic silver chains. It says the 4 women are among 25 people who face federal charges, including 13 female prison guards. The scheme involves smuggling drugs and cell phones into the Baltimore City Detention Center. According to U.S. Attorney Rod Rosenstein, 25 defendants participated in running the activities of the Black Gorilla, like GUE, family, a prison and street gang from behind bars in Baltimore City. 13 female correction officers, 7 inmates, and 5 alleged co-conspirators are charged with racketeering, money laundering, and possession with the intent to distribute. Officials say all 13 have been suspended without pay, and the department is moving to fire them. The affidavit says the corrections officers helped members of the notorious Black Gorilla family smuggle cell phones, marijuana, prescription pills, and cigarettes into the jail to sell to other inmates and make thousands of dollars. This situation enabled BGF members to continue to run their criminal enterprise within the jail in the streets of Baltimore. That's according to Steve Vogt from the FBI. Corrections officers hid the contraband in their shoes, and Baltimore does not require their employees to remove their footwear when going through screening. The indictment says that the ringleader was inmate Tavon White, and he reportedly made $16,000 in 1 month from the smuggled contraband. 4 corrections officers, including Jennifer Owens, Katera Stevenson, Shania Brooks, and Tiffany Linder, were facing charges, allegedly fell pregnant to White while he was behind bars. Charging documents reveal Owens had Tavon tattooed on her neck, so that's Jennifer Owens, and Katera Stevenson had Tavon tattooed on her wrist. The indictment seeks the forfeiture of $500,000 in other proceeds, including automobiles. White allegedly gave gifts to 3 corrections officers, Owen, Stevenson, and Brooks, apparently they received luxury cars and a diamond ring. Secretary of Public Safety and Correctional Services Gary Maynard says he was taking full responsibility. It becomes embarrassing for me when we expose ourselves and we participate in an investigation that's going to show what's going on in our jails that I'm not proud of. Stuff like this baffles me a little bit.
Well, sure, because what the heck? It's like everybody. It was like everybody was drinking the water, and it was something in the water that was making everybody stupid.
Yeah, they definitely, something was going on there. That's not the only one I've ever tracked, but that's one of the bigger headlines that came out of it. I remember reading about the family itself would make its own series of episodes, and the FBI I think has a vault page on them with related documents to all of this. I don't know 100% how many pages are in there, but I'm sure you could go read about the Black Gorilla family. There was another one I think it was out of New York. And it was around the same time period, but this is a convicted cop killer in New York. It says Ronell Wilson. This is also from an old CBS News article. Convicted New York cop killer impregnates prison guard in plot to save own life. It says a federal corrections officer is accused of becoming pregnant with a convicted cop killer's baby as part of a bid to save his life. I'm not 100% sure how that works. I've got a baby, so you can't kill me.
I don't think that they discriminate between parents getting the death penalty.
No, I don't think that's a thing. Prosecutors say Nancy Gonzalez, 29, was arrested Tuesday morning at her home in Long Island, New York. Gonzalez is 8 months pregnant with Ronell Wilson's baby. Wilson was convicted of murdering undercover detectives Rodney Andrews and James Nemorin on Staten Island in New York in 2003. He was originally sentenced to death, but an appeals court overturned the death sentence for procedural reasons. Wilson is still facing another penalty phase trial where a jury will again decide whether he should face death or spend life behind bars. Sources tell 1010 Wins, which is a radio station up there, the pregnancy was part of a plot to help Wilson avoid the death penalty. According to the complaint, Gonzalez and Wilson had a sexual relationship between March and August of last year while she was guarding him. Gonzalez and Wilson carried on their affair in a, quote, vacant activity room while Gonzalez was supposed to be making her rounds, checking on inmates. Prosecutors said the two were caught on video talking for hours at her desk and in the kitchen. In addition, prosecutors alleged that Gonzalez carried on another relationship with a different inmate after breaking things off with Wilson. Prosecutors claimed that Gonzalez told the other inmate, for whatever reason, I took a chance because I was so vulnerable and wanted to be loved, and now I'm carrying his child. Gonzalez allegedly said she kind of got sucked into his world, and why not give him a child as far as giving him some kind of hope, which is crazy to me. She faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted of engaging in a sexual relationship with an inmate. The Prison Rape Elimination Act became a huge deal a while back. I think it's less, most of the times, not all the time, but most of the time, it's less interesting to me when a male guard gets a female inmate pregnant, because that's terrible behavior that you sort of expect. If it's going to happen, that's the direction I think. So I think the reason these capture my headlines is because they're female guards and male inmates.
Yeah, either way, though, it's really inappropriate, right?
Oh, it's 100% inappropriate. I didn't mean to think any of it come across as appropriate. So, do you remember the prosecutor, Jack Smith?
Yeah.
So he's the prosecutor in the Ronell Wilson cases for years. So the original one got thrown out, but they eventually come around to the Supreme Court hearing some of this, and I think the district court had ruled that Ronell Wilson was totally fine in terms of his capabilities to proceed and his intellectual capacity. But on March 15, 2016, so a couple of years after these articles from 2013, the conclusion was made that Ronell Wilson was mentally handicapped, and that would make him ineligible for execution under the Eighth Amendment. Federal prosecutors later on, they decide they're not going to appeal this ruling. So he is resentenced to life in prison without parole. And as of 2026, he is serving his sentence in the federal penitentiary in Springfield, Missouri. So I guess it kind of worked. Maybe she didn't necessarily need to get pregnant, because that can't go well. None of that is mentioned in here. Like they don't mention the end of what happened there. She pled guilty. She got a year in prison for having sex with Ronell Wilson. I was able to find that elsewhere.
Right. And so, yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah, she gave birth to a son. But that is not really where I was headed with this episode. There was this case, and Brian Inton has been covering it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. He's an interesting journalist to follow, because he's like everybody else. He's scrapping to get as many followers as possible and to give out the best stories as possible.
But he's boots on the ground, though.
Yeah, he does boots on the ground work. So he has like a video out that you can watch about this story we're going to tell. It has a little more information than what we're going to put out there. It's maybe a 30-40 minute video. I had started following this weird case out of Florida, and I was following it from a different perspective before you sent me this article. The reason I was following it is because the person that's the defendant at the center of it all got a new trial, which I assume you already knew was going on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So where I pick up in this story, like I'm finding out about it for the very first time, is a Court TV article written by Lauren Silver back in February. And I think there it is. The title is Daisy Link Granted New Murder Trial After Prosecution's Error. That is sort of what piqued my interest in finding out a little bit about this case. So this article reads, a woman convicted of second-degree murder has been granted a new trial after a judge found that a major mistake by prosecutors during closing arguments had prevented her from getting a fair trial. Daisy Link was convicted in October 2025 of murdering her partner, Pedro Jimenez. Link never denied shooting Jimenez, but took the stand in her own defense to tell the jury that she was acting in self-defense when she pulled the trigger. On October 16th, when Alex Brigida delivered the state's closing argument, he showed the jury a PowerPoint presentation containing 4 photographs that the prosecution intended to use during the trial, but those photographs had never been introduced as evidence. Brigida used those photos in his closing argument to discredit Link's mother, who testified for the defense about the couple's volatile relationship. The state conceded its improper conduct and apologized for the mistake after the case was submitted to the jury, and the defense was permitted to make an additional 1-minute argument to the jury to, quote-unquote, cure the error. So curing the error means the judge can't really come up with any other way to right the ship after something has happened, and they throw a Hail Mary pass thinking, we can fix this. Unfortunately, with photographs and videos, it's very difficult to unring the bell, so to speak.
Right. Did he tell them to disregard them?
So Judge Lodi Jean ruled that the attempt to fix the issue was insufficient in her ruling ordering Link a new trial. The state's contemporaneous apology and admission of error in using photographs not admitted into evidence is commendable. The damage had already been done. Not only was unadmitted evidence presented to the jury, but it was also coupled with argument used directly to discredit the defendant's self-defense claims and a key witness in the case, the defendant's mother. So what they did was the judge basically said, look, you can't consider these photos because we made an error. It's honestly like probably the point in time where you should be declaring a mistrial. Like, I hate to say that lightly, but like that's like, it's so egregious when
because it's too late to put them into evidence because the defense didn't have the opportunity to object. Yeah.
And like you're making your closing arguments at that point, and like it could have been resolved so easily by just bringing whoever it was that took the photos. You could just foundationally have admitted them, not even publish them to the jury.
I think
and
it
then
was
would have
just.
been okay.
I think it was overlooked. Don't you think? I don't think
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
admit them on purpose. This is like probably the textbook example of a technicality where somebody was
100%.
they
Yeah.
weren't paying attention, and everything evidentiary has to be entered into evidence before it can be considered by the jury. And this was used in, it sounded like the closing, and it had an impact, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was prejudiced against the defense and a defense witness that had testified. So there was really no choice. You're right. It probably would have been the time to call a mistrial. I don't know what the deal was with the argument. I guess the judge just didn't want. I guess she wanted to see what happened. In theory, because if the jury had disregarded it and found her not guilty, like it wouldn't have mattered.
Right. So the office of the state's attorney had put out this Facebook post. I think you can still access it today, like the day the conviction occurred. And it gets shared, but basically it's said something to the effect of, today Daisy Link has been found guilty of the second-degree murder of her boyfriend Pedro Jimenez. We thank the jury for their careful examination of all the facts and evidence presented by prosecutors during this trial. I applaud the talented prosecutorial team of Assistant State's Attorney Alex Brigida, Jennifer De Leon, and Jared Alcala for effectively bringing forth all the essential case elements that led to this verdict. That's according to Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, the state's attorney. I don't know why they do this, like the back patting that they do on social media for police and prosecutorial districts makes me a little nuts. It's like, we did our jobs today.
Yay, you did your job.
Can we have our orange slice and our trophy, please? I don't like this nonsense, but that did lead me partly down the rabbit hole to where you ended up quicker than I did, because it links underneath on this official Office of the State's Attorney page to a local10.com article down in Florida. And if you click on this article, which I did, it said jurors in Miami rendered a verdict Thursday in the murder trial of a 30-year-old Homestead woman. Daisy Link was found guilty in the June 2022 killing of Pedro Jimenez, her partner of 9 years, father of 2 children. Link also made international headlines in 2024 for becoming pregnant with another child by a fellow inmate while in jail. And that part raised my eyebrows a little bit. But it's just a sentence in this version that I read.
Right, and it's just like it's completely normal.
That article closes out with some stuff that I wanted to throw out there. Her own defense claims she only intended to scare him away. And to be fair, like, you know a little bit about the Jimenez murder at this point from the perspective of what happened to him, right?
Right.
It's a fluke. What happened to him is a wound that in 90% of circumstances is survived. It just happened to clip his femoral artery, and that part is what you can't stop. Like, if you don't realize that you've hit a major blood vessel, you can't stop someone from dying. She says that she intended to scare him away. So according to the prosecutor, they said this is a toxic relationship with domestic violence going back and forth. And you know what Miss Link did? She lit a match and lit that fire that night because she wanted this relationship to be over. And this was the best way to do it. Link's attorney, Ayaban Tomas, counted that Jimenez made it clear that he was going to break into that home, lock her out, and keep her away from her children, which he had no right to do. Importantly, she has every right to use deadly force to prevent him from doing that. That's not true. She doesn't have the right to use deadly force against her domestic partner if he's going to lock the door. Okay, just to be clear.
You have the right to use deadly force if you're going to die.
Right. If you think you or someone around you is going to die, you can counter with equivalent force, and that is, of course, self-defense and defense of others. Jurors who began deliberating around 2 p.m. rendered the verdict just before 4 p.m. could have considered lesser charges. So this is 2 hours of deliberation, and those photos probably help them make up their mind. Juror Kenan Bowie explained what led him to vote to convict Link. if he's running away, shot in the back, it doesn't seem like self-defense if he's running away. This is what Bowie said after court adjourned. There was a lot that she lied about, a lot from the second she called 911. 2 jurors who were initially on the fence ultimately joined the unanimous verdict to convict. It didn't take them very long. And then it says, Link's unusual pregnancy was not discussed in court, and the child is now in the care of relatives. That's what gets us here today. I think it's fair to say, don't you?
Yep. That shouldn't happen.
Right. You and I talk a lot about different kinds of cases where we have questions. Usually our questions are more about the case, but that's not really the question that we had today in this particular set of circumstances, I guess, because it's not about the case. We wanted to know more about what was happening with this pregnancy that's mentioned like it's totally normal. Like, I read a couple of like little clips of things at the top of the show about other cases where like we just were all talking about it. It's very sensational, and people had like made the decision that like they were going to put out full press releases about those cases. Turns out, well, I think this is one of the better articles. It's from last October. And it has that Brian Inton story, and it has that Ashley Banfield from over at News Nation, Michael Ramsey. I know like they're hit or miss with some of the things they get into, but this one, I thought it was interesting. They have a story that says jailhouse insemination scheme was ticket out, prisoner thought, which is wild to me that it comes up that way, and that now. So that's October last year that they're talking about it. We're like way out in the future of this story, but also way past it all having happened. And like we know that her second-degree murder conviction is going to be overturned. And honestly, she's getting to the point in here where if they can get a manslaughter on the table, we probably don't have to go back to trial in this really dumb case. But this part of it and like the thinking that went into this is very confusing to me. Do you ever like look at something and go, a baby is the way out of this?
I absolutely do not. I can almost, with a very high degree of certainty, say that a baby is in fact not a way out of anything,
Ever.
Usually. Yeah.
I used to joke about chewing gum babies. Like when I was growing up, a lot of people around me got married very young. And I did not. I have been married more times than most of my classmates and colleagues, but I did not get married very young. And some of the folks around me are married at like 17, 18, 19 years old. To be fair, some of those people, they have been together forever, and they will probably be together forever. And I totally get that. But some of those relationships did not last as long as people thought they would. They did not last forever. They lasted 10 years, 12 years. And I've been close with several people, and like their decision, I hope they weren't unilateral decisions by one person or the other in the relationship, but some of them I feel like maybe kind of were. They're like decisions of how to fix their failing relationships, like prior to their divorce. One of the things they land on is like, we're going to have a baby. So I call them chewing gum babies. Like,
I still don't understand.
It started out as Band-Aid baby. Like you were going to like slap a Band-Aid on your relationship in the form of a baby. And that's how you thought your relationship was going to be okay. Because if we both have this other little person to love together, everything will be fine.
That is absolutely not how that works.
But the reason I settled on chewing gum babies is because have you ever got a Band-Aid like I guess somewhere loose in your house or whatever, and it eventually ends up on the bottom of your shoe? It is the grossest thing to try and remove from like the bottom of your shoe.
Oh wow, this just gets worse and worse.
And like you're trying to pull it off of there, and it feels like pulling chewing gum. And I feel like that's what some people have done in how they created their families. And I suppose there are a percentage of families that when they had this Band-Aid baby, everything was okay. But for the most part, you end up with this child who's going to be shuffled between two houses once you finally get divorced. I think it's like terrible that people have that approach to like creating a family. But in my mind, I never went, oh, there's something worse than that. Because I feel like it's like one of the worst things you can do to children.
Oh, now I see where you're going with this.
Placing the expectations of like on like babies, children, to like be the thing fixing your relationship that probably is not salvageable. That's terrible.
Well, and it makes everything worse. And now you've included an innocent, right?
Yeah. You've now included an innocent person who like depends on like the giant people walking around to give it the basic necessities in life. And to do that in the middle of a criminal case is horrible. I do not know how that is the thing that you think is going to like solve your issues. So here's what News Nation had presented in all of this between Banfield and Ramsey. A Florida jail inmate conceived a baby from a male prisoner she never met face to face, told her mother that getting pregnant was her ticket to freedom and a financial settlement.
And that made no sense to me.
No, but I don't think it's going to make sense. But I'm gonna go through the motions of what they've published here, because I think the publication is sound. I just think the critical thinking skills of the subjects of the publication, things did not work out that way for Daisy Link, who had a daughter in June 2024. The 30-year-old accused murderer has not left the Turner Guilford Knight Correction Center in Miami-Dade County since 2022. Officials who investigated Link's 2023 pregnancy determined it wasn't a jail staffer, but rather another inmate who was the father. Joan DePaz, a detainee also charged with murder, had established contact with Link through the air conditioning ventilation. They even exchanged photos and notes, including one message in which DePaz called Link his, and this is their quote, not mine, snuggle wuggle baby girl. But how did the pregnancy happen? In one of their talks through the ventilation shaft, DePaz told Link he wanted to have a baby because he was facing a murder conviction and, quote, might never go home. So they're both murder defendants. They hatched a plan. Using a cable made partly of bedding material, DePaz located 2 floors above on several occasions, placed his semen inside rolled up saran wrap, and passed it to Link, who inseminated herself with a yeast infection applicator. In a subsequent illegal phone call the inmates had, Link said she had missed her period. She was put on lockdown when jail officials discovered she was pregnant. And in an interview with WSVN TV, DePaz likened Link to the Virgin Mary, given the two had never touched each other. Link called her mother Christmas Day 2023 to break the news that she was carrying a baby. The older woman was incredulous. Incredulous is a little light. She says, "You're full of shit." This is shocking. This is the mom on the phone call. For
I
the
saw that on, I think it was, I guess, Brian Enton's segment. And like she was way more than incredulous.
Yeah. She says, "What do you mean?" This is Daisy Link says, "What do you mean?" She says, "I'm going to sue them and get out. You know how much I can sue them for? This is all planned. I can get out now." Her mother responded and said, "You know what you are? You're stupid."
I don't disagree. I don't even know where they thought that. I can't even figure out how she thought that was ever going to work.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I start reading about something and I try and take a positive approach on this. I can't take a positive approach to... There's a couple things going on here. Like, people get really negative about, 2 murderers having a baby. That's probably... It's not the best idea. But generally speaking, I think DePaz, he ends up with this baby girl. They have a baby girl. So it goes to dad's mom. So grandma is raising the baby.
Right.
Now, he pleaded guilty to murder, and he got 25 years in state prison. So this is all happening and getting attention because it's right around the time of Daisy Link's trial. Go ahead. You got something to say there.
Well, all I was going to say is I got the impression that the male in this situation thought he was possibly doing his mother a favor. I'm pretty sure his mother declined to be interviewed, but somewhere in his head, he thought that his mom needed a replacement for him since he was going to be gone to jail for so long.
Right.
And I feel like that was perhaps a misdirected or misconstrued plan.
Yeah. So if you go back through this, and like this has been covered for a while, it's not brand new that it's on News Nation. News Nation just brought a little bit of this to the forefront of the story. I went back and pulled a South Florida 6 NBC article from January 6, 2024 by Trina Robinson down there. I felt like it summed up some of the insanity of all this. The headline was ludicrous. And the subtitle is Inmate's Mom Demands Probe After Daughter Becomes Pregnant in Miami-Dade Jail. It says a South Florida mother is demanding an investigation after her daughter, who was an inmate at the Turner Guilford Correctional Center in Miami-Dade County, became pregnant while in jail. Daisy Link has been held there on a second-degree murder charge since June 2022. She was also charged with battery by a detainee on a visitor or other detainee. Her mother, Josie Ramos, told NBC6 she was surprised by the news of the pregnancy. December the 25th, she confirms to me she's expecting. On Christmas Day, we were shocked. The inmate's mother said her daughter told her a 23-year-old prisoner with a long rap sheet, including second-degree murder, whom she did not know, reportedly passed semen inside of a glove, so this is a different story than the saran wrap, 3 times through an air conditioning vent in the jail wall. I know this did not happen, Ramos said. I heard what they said happened, which is this whole AC vent thing, which is ludicrous and ridiculous. Link's attorney told NBC6 the Miami-Dade Corrections and Rehabilitation Department said the client got pregnant by some unconventional method while Link and the other inmate were both at TGK. He has since been moved to Metro West. The care, safety, and rehabilitation of all those in our custody remains our top priority. While there is no evidence of sexual battery against our inmate at this time, the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy are currently under an active investigation. Link is 3 months pregnant, but Ramos worries not only how her daughter got pregnant, but if she is safe in getting the proper medical care because she's being held in the jail's mental health ward. I want to see if someone in the courthouse can see this and let her out so she can get proper prenatal medical care because you don't come out of a jail impregnated by anyone while you're still waiting for a trial. So the Corrections Department told NBC6 that pregnant inmates receive timely and appropriate prenatal care, specialized obstetrician services indicated by the CHS, and they receive time for postpartum recovery. Ramos said she has demanded an internal affairs investigation in how her daughter became pregnant and if she is receiving adequate care for her and her baby. Okay, that's about the worst thing you can do as a parent.
Well, I mean, she already knows how her daughter became pregnant. She
Correct.
said it in the phone call.
Yeah, she just thinks her daughter has something seriously wrong with her and, like, is making it up.
Well, sure. And honestly, I don't blame her because it's kind of unbelievable, right?
It's completely unbelievable. Do you think she got pregnant from the guy in the AC van, or she got pregnant from a guard and that's the decision?
No, they did a DNA test.
Right.
They're sure that it is, in fact, the inmate's child. And so I don't know, but what I will say is it seemed highly unlikely that they could have come into physical contact without somebody knowing.
Well, so it almost works. Have you followed like how the 2024 motions go down? Like it almost gets her out.
Oh no, I didn't follow that.
Okay, so back in February of 2024, Elizabeth Chuck over at NBC News, she published an article, Judge Postpones Decision Over Whether to Transfer Florida Inmate Who Became Pregnant While Incarcerated to House Arrest. It said that Daisy Link is about 19 weeks pregnant, but has been in jail custody since June 2022. The circumstances leading to her pregnancy at this time are not clear. So the judge postponed a decision Wednesday over whether to transfer a Florida inmate who became pregnant while she was incarcerated from the county jail to house arrest, pending the release of medical and corrections records. Daisy Link, 28, so a couple years back, she had been in custody in Miami-Dade since June 2022. On Christmas Day, she called family members and told them she was pregnant. This is according to her sister. That's who they interviewed here, Crystal Barreto. The circumstances that led to the pregnancy are unclear, and they have prompted an investigation by the Miami-Dade Corrections and Rehabilitation Department. Link is awaiting trial on a charge of second-degree murder, which her attorney, Marlene Montana, says arose from a domestic violence incident during which Link feared for her life. She had been held without bond at the Correctional Center, which houses both male and female inmates. And at the time, she didn't have a trial date, which is how we are having this hearing. So at a hearing, her attorneys asked State Circuit Judge Lodi Jean to reconsider a previous order denying Link pretrial release, which I don't agree with. Keeping second-degree murder suspects in a case like this behind bars with no bond whatsoever is dumb. Because you know what happened. It's not like there's some serial murderer or they were stalking in a domestic situation. You have a situation where a gun came out and someone died, and the state is not moving forward on first degree, they're moving forward on second degree. That typically indicates that while it happened, it's maybe not an accident, but it's definitely not premeditated. So other people are probably not in danger. So the previous order denied Daisy Link a pretrial release, saying she was about 19 weeks pregnant but had received prenatal vitamins in only 19 days of her pregnancy. She suggested that Link could live with her sister under home confinement with electronic monitoring instead of being behind bars. And this is something a good defense attorney should do every time. And that is, she was raising, there's an alternative to her being incarcerated, and my client's baby's health is at risk, which, yeah, to some degree that's true, but it really is kind of a Hail Mary. Link answered several questions from the judge, agreeing when she was asked whether she consented to have her medical records introduced in court. More medical records dating to the start of her pregnancy will be turned over to the prosecution, and corrections records documenting Link's requests for health treatment in jail will be turned over to the judge, who is going to review them to see whether they have evidentiary value or could be used by the defense. The attorney said that Link's records show that she asked jail officials for a pregnancy test as early as November 7th, was not granted one till late December. She said that Link had also asked for and been denied Gatorade to help with dehydration for morning sickness. The department themselves did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the allegations. But a spokesperson for the department said that pregnant inmates receive timely and appropriate prenatal care, and that the department confirmed Link's pregnancy after a thorough medical exam. But it also has not commented on who may have impregnated her, which we put that at the top of this so you understood what had happened. But you have over 2 years here where it kind of feels like what she said she was trying to do might come true.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
He said, while there is no evidence of sexual battery against an inmate at this time, the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy were under active investigation. So, you could kind of almost get there were it not for the fact that you're both trapped in jail on murder charges and the state has both of your DNAs.
Well, right. And she didn't even... I saw the, I guess, body cam. I'm not really sure what was filming, but I saw, where they were each brought in and questioned about the situation, because she said straight up, this is what happened. And I'm not entirely sure that she had the option to try and bring some sort of criminal action, but she was like, no, I did this to myself. What are you talking about? And she was in complete agreement with doing it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I thought that was interesting, but she never tried to make it anything that it wasn't, right? She was very honest and upfront. It's not a believable story. And so because it's not believable, it seemed like she was lying, right?
Right.
Except that wasn't the case. I don't even know to this day that they've seen each other face to face, which is crazy. But I don't find it necessarily responsible. And it's one of the most insane things I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of I feel bad for this baby, but obviously somebody wanted this baby in terms of like the baby has a home. And
right, and I feel like and you can tell me if I'm wrong because you're a guy, but I feel like he thought maybe he wasn't going to get to have any children.
Yeah, I think he ultimately was like, you get these feelings like you're disappointing people. And if you're a young man in prison who is obviously like going to end up taking some responsibility for a murder charge, and you know that, I think they said he was 23, 24, something like that. If you know that you're not getting out of prison by the time that you're 50, the likelihood is, it's like, even if your parents are in the best health, like they're going to be late in life by the time you get out and find somebody and have a relationship, and hopefully it's somebody young enough to have a child with. You know what I mean?
Right. And I guess he saw the fleeting.
He saw the writing on the wall.
And to me, I mean, he convinced. I don't even know what to think about any of this. I could really deconstruct the situation by saying, like, your DNA mixed with somebody who was willing to do this. So,
I mean,
you know, but
it's the jailhouse equivalent of a one-night stand in terms of genetic possibilities. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that when you have a child, it actually, you know, it happens in every single case. Get around half your DNA from your mom and half your DNA from your dad. And so you should always look for things about a person that you can tolerate, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but like, it's not the smartest decision by either one of them, right?
Correct.
And so that DNA is getting mixed together and making a child.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I probably shouldn't be so negative. It's really none of our business, I guess. But,
well, they kind of made it our business when they made it a part of something going on here. I mean, it got a lot of news coverage in different little pieces, but this video that you had sent over to me looks like the only place where everybody's kind of looked into it to make sure a proper investigation had been done. I think that's what they're doing. I think they were really wanting to know, like, is this the true story, this air vent debacle, or is it like a guard being covered up for?
Right, and they did do I do know they did a DNA test, and it was the parents were the parents, and obviously the mom was the mom because she gave birth, and that's kind of obvious when that happens. But they had looked back, and like they literally never crossed paths, and like all of the guards and anybody who could have had any hand in that happening, they were, you know, dumbstruck by it, because how did that happen? But ultimately, I think there was no action to be taken because, like, they did this on their own accord. I think maybe they faced some contraband type.
Yeah.
I don't know, charges, accusations, whatever.
Possession of, I mean, possession of bodily fluid. I don't even know what that would be.
Yeah, well, they're not allowed to move things through the ventilation system.
Correct.
So regardless of what it is, you're not supposed to do that. And that came up as a problem. But as far as her inserting what he was sending her and ending up pregnant, like, she did it to herself, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't initially, it doesn't seem like she was trying to get like a civil suit against them for money. which is what she told her mom. I wasn't really sure of that. I didn't understand that aspect because literally the prison didn't do anything, right? I don't know that. I mean, I don't know you could find them liable.
I am sure the right kind of tort lawyer could do something with this. I just don't know what right this second.
I guess I was just surprised because I thought she would have a different story having told her mom that.
Yeah.
But it never came up. Like, it was never the case that, she tried to allege anything that would possibly make the prison somehow liable. So I just wasn't sure. I don't know. I feel like it's a very interesting case.
Yeah, it is. And it came up. So I know people covered this other one. I was gonna tell you this story because it just happened. This had popped up, I think, a week ago. What is Friday's date this last week?
The 21st.
Okay, so I think it was the 14th.
The 22nd. I'm sorry, 22nd.
So it's -7, the 15th. I saw this as like being passed around. And I know it's turned into an article since then, but what I saw was written by Madeline Lippy. She had written it on May 20th. Unfortunately, I don't know. I have a printout of it that somebody gave me. I don't know where it was actually published because I just have like the reader form. But it is prisoner and pregnancy related, so I thought I would throw that in here. The title of this article just says how our healthcare and carceral system failed Samantha Randazzo. It says on Friday, 33-year-old Samantha Randazzo, who's 9 months pregnant, was awaiting her arraignment in a New York City courtroom for a drug possession charge when her water broke. She gave birth to a baby boy in open court. Public defenders and legal advocates, and they're saying legal aid was in there and Brooklyn defenders were in there. They say that Samantha Randazzo was at times shackled while in labor. The New York Police Department and court personnel deny this claim. My guess is she's like, they don't understand what they're saying because if she's giving birth and her water is broken, then there's a chance like in between there she was in shackles during her arraignment and probably was actually in labor, even though it may not have been in labor, which is what most people think of. So it's probably both things are true. The NYPD says it did not know that Samantha Randazzo was pregnant at the time of her arrest, as she was, quote, wearing baggy clothes. Their formal statement suggests that Samantha later informed officers she was experiencing a withdrawal from drugs, only divulging that she was pregnant when she was at the police station. Officers then brought Randazzo to Coney Island Hospital, where she was admitted, and details of her treatment are unknown for privacy purposes. But New York City Health and Hospitals, which operates Coney Island, has not commented on this. Samantha Randazzo was discharged, transported by officers to court for arraignment, where her labor either began or intensified. The NYPD's baggy clothes defense should easily unravel through basic police procedure. When you search someone incident to arrest, you would probably have realized that there's a full-term pregnant baby belly there. So that would, unless they just have terrible search procedures.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm not even sure. I don't even know what to do with that. Because, like, what if she wasn't pregnant?
Right. You're right. But the point the author is making here is that it's likely that Randazzo's body was touched in some way between the arrest and the transportation to the hospital and back to court that like they should have known. Whether she's actually in withdrawal or not, or already in labor, or some combination of the two, like you definitely could see there being some overlapping symptoms, but we're not going to know that. We just know that she's discharged from the hospital, sent back to court. And to be honest with you, whether she's in full withdrawal or labor, either one of those things should have given enough attention to her condition that like the hospital maybe didn't shuffle her off for arraignment. And I'm not saying she's in the right either, because clearly she's gotten herself into a situation that requires an arraignment. But I guess it's the arrangement or the arrangement at this point. Samantha Randazzo's pain and discomfort as a result of her pregnancy was treated by every person she encountered that day as an accessory to possible drug use. The author is very upset about this, and I would be too. Notably, only the NYPD has commented on the alleged withdrawals. The police say they knew that Randazzo was heavily pregnant by the time they brought her to court in cuffs. In a post-COVID era, arraignments are conducted from hospital beds by video with some frequency, especially with compelling circumstances. In fact, like they don't even bring most people over from holding cells or jail where I'm at. But the NYPD could have issued a desk appearance ticket, a quasi-discretionary written order to appear in court that does not require them to be taken into custody once they discovered she was pregnant, especially for something like a simple possession. But the system did not see a mother suffering. It saw a criminal. Randazzo's distress was visible only as the predictable consequence of addiction, and itself a disease too often dismissed as a choice. So the hospital sent her on her way. The officers took her back to jail. The court called her case. And when Randazzo did go into labor in front of a room full of suits, robes, and badge numbers, she deserved the proper medical care and human dignity that every birthing person is entitled to, regardless of drug use. The culture of dehumanization present in Randazzo's case is far from an aberration. As a public defender, I witnessed firsthand how the state lays claim to the bodies of women, rendering them invisible, incriminating, and sometimes both. In some states, such as Tennessee, sex workers, disproportionately women, face an aggravated prostitution felony if they are HIV positive. In women's prisons and immigration detention facilities across the country, female inmates are forced to strip naked and remove tampons so that guards, mostly male, can search for contraband. And then, of course, are the myriad states fighting to deprive pregnant women of vital care, casting criminal charges across state lines as providers send patients medications. Randazzo's case also surfaces a version of pregnancy degradation and policing that hides behind child welfare concerns and platitudes like it's for her own good. There's more to this, but I thought it was interesting that this woman gave birth in a courtroom.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, forget being shackled. Like, why didn't they get her to the hospital?
Yeah, I mean, obviously she's here for some sort of drug penalty. Whether I don't know where, if they're just at arraignment, I don't know how far along we are that we need to be holding this woman at all. But definitely, like the taking her to the hospital and then taking her back to court is a terrible idea.
Well, right. And I guess I'm a little confused by what exactly is happening, but
she had a baby in the courtroom.
Well, I realize that. I guess I'm just a little confused as to why that happened. However, I don't know that anybody that was involved in any of that wanted any of that to happen.
Oh no, I don't think that's what was happening. I think that's the reason that this particular public defender has kind of latched on to that we weren't paying attention. It's because, so here's what happens in those situations. And it's very different than the Daisy Link thing in some ways, but I wasn't going to drag you like too far. It's because the court is never in a hurry to do a damn thing. Ever. Police are never in a hurry to do anything. Courts, judges, they're not in a hurry.
Yeah, it's kind of alarming, isn't it?
Yes, it's very alarming, actually. Like
for what they're dealing with, right, in court, it seems like everything should be in a hurry, and perhaps that's why nothing is, right?
Yeah. No, nothing's in a hurry at all. It's everything moves at a snail's pace. Ultimately, the reasons they will give you if you ask someone in charge why it moves at a snail's pace is because they want to do it correctly. That's not true anymore. It's because like there's just no way to get all those moving parts in one place at one time and have it make any sense whatsoever. That's what's really going on.
Yeah,
I personally would not want to give birth in a courtroom.
Well, no, but there is an element of that like literally nobody can control. And so my thought would be when her water broke, as long as, I mean, that would be obvious unless somebody thought she just peed herself, right?
Right.
So as long as from the time her water broke until like they were pushing towards like this woman is in labor, we need to do something.
No.
I would say nobody did anything wrong because there aren't any signs your water is going to break. It just breaks.
Correct.
And so you might have like false labor before then, but like once your water breaks, you're in labor, but it happens all of a sudden. And so, I mean, she could have possibly not been aware that it had broken. Maybe she thought, that what is this? But I'm just saying it. I don't see anybody saying like, let's have this woman go through this massive indignity of giving birth in a courtroom, right?
They clearly went somewhere to have her checked out, and they point out Coney Island Hospital. So that means somebody recognized that something was going on with her, took her to a medical professional. Everybody just kind of assumed that it was the drugs that she had been charged with. And we end up with her, going through an arraignment. Like, look, if you don't have this person on some serious felony, I'm being very serious when I say this, or I don't even think you keep them on a misdemeanor at any kind. If you've got someone in a medical emergency, your responsibility should be to leave them with medical professionals. Even like, unless it's like some kind of serial murderer or something.
I guess what I'm not sure of is like she could have gone from not being in labor at all, even when she went to be checked out, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying like it could have happened so fast.
Right, like she was completely normal, and if her water broke, that's what happened, because your water breaks and you're in labor, but like you don't feel like your water's going to break. It just happens.
Right.
And so if she wasn't, there were no symptoms to be exhibited, is my point. So if she didn't have anything else going on, there wasn't an emergency until there was, right? Which actually, usually that's not even an emergency. Your water breaks and you're just moving
along towards like the final thing is the baby's going to be born. It's not an emergency as much as it just needs attending.
Well, I think that like there is, I don't know, there's something about the fluid, but I'm pretty sure it takes a really long time to leak all of the fluid out. But whatever. I'm just saying, like, I guess I need more details. I'm not sure. Like, was she saying she was in terrible pain or something like that?
I don't know. You'll have to call and ask her. I'm sure she's out of jail now. They just kept her long enough for her to have the baby in the courtroom.
What a story that kid has, right?
Right. I popped out on the bench on the defendant's side of a New York City courtroom. Surrounded by Brooklyn defenders.
I mean, yeah. I just
I don't have a lot of details on this. I just said, so you had sent me kind of the Daisy Link story, and I had been looking at it. I think you might have been looking at it in parts, and we were deciding what to record. And that popped up, having just occurred like within a week. And I was like, well, that's a sign that that's what we're going to put on. So I think I texted you back. You had another idea, and I was like, that and that. We're going to work on those two.
Like, yeah, no, it was perfect. I agree. I think it's newsworthy. I mean, it's crazy that happened. I'm just not so sure that there's any blame to be had here.
No. Look, it came from a relatively self-righteous or righteous on the behalf of others public defender's writing. When I understand that.
And she might know something that would make it more of a travesty, but like to me, like this could have very easily just happened, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think she had a reason to tell a story and didn't have as much of a hook as she wanted to in the moment. I don't have any more details on it. And honestly, I'm glad that I don't, because that protects that woman's privacy.
Well, sure.
The fact that I know she had a baby and went to the hospital is more than enough.
I think that I sort of agree with your stance on like there's very little reason and like what'd you say 8.5 month pregnant woman should be
8.5 or 9 month pregnant. There's no reason for her to be incarcerated very long unless it's like a very serious felony.
Yeah, like murder or something.
Right, because it's kind of where we started our episode, but it's a very expensive process to keep a pregnant woman and to make sure that the baby's okay. But like different parts of our judicial system try to do that. Like they try and make sure it happens. They do put resources towards it. I personally don't like the idea of pregnant people giving birth behind bars. That's just me. I think there's better ways to spend money and time than trying to teach corrections officers how to do things like that and how to get them to the right doctors and whatnot. I think it's better. That they be kept out to the last possible minute and only be detained once the baby's delivered safely to the world.
Right. But, obviously they have to be treated the same because otherwise that would be an incentive.
Oh, I'm not trying to incentivize serious felonies at all. Obviously, it doesn't work very well when you get your semen through the air vents, which is baffling.
That just takes the cake. I've never heard of a case like that. Have you?
I started with the types of cases I've heard of some weird inseminations. That one through the air vents without ever having met for the purpose of getting out of jail. I have not heard of it told so plainly as that video had her tell it.
Right, exactly. And I thought it was interesting because that's what they chose to, contraband or whatever.
Special consideration was given to True Crime Excess by LabRottiCreations.com. If you have a moment in your favorite app, please go on and give us a review or a 5-star rating. It helps us get noticed in the crowd. This is True Crime XS.
You fall like the stars. I break things like guitars. Thick skin, no scars. We're in trouble, we took it too far. I don't want to go, but it's 'cause I'll disappoint ya. It's all I've ever dreamed of, something I cannot let go of. I hate the competition, this culture's like a gym, and I lost the motivation to get fit in your expectations.
True Crime Excess is brought to you by John and Meg. It's written, produced, edited, and posted by John and Meg. You can always support True Crime Excess through Patreon.com, or if you have a story you'd like them to cover, you can reach them at TrueCrimeAccess.com. Thank you for joining us.